Welcome, everybody. I'm Justin, and I'm very excited to be here today. Let me present this. So I'm really excited to talk about design sprints at Crema, what it means for Crema, why we're doing it, what it is in general, kind of going some big picture, but also some specifics along the way. And at the end, we're going to have a time for Q&A. OK, so today we're going to be talking about what a design sprint is, how it's done, why we do it, what are the next steps that Crema has, and then kind of Q&A. So what is a design sprint? The design sprint was created by Jake Knapp of Google Ventures, and it's a combination of the best aspects of design thinking, business leadership, social psychology, and problem solving. So Jake Knapp was working at Google, and for several years he was noticing that meetings were not always as productive as they could have been, and team problem solving was not as productive as it could have been. So some of the problems that happened, and I would imagine that many of you have been on teams like this, one of the things he saw is that brainstorming is really great for team morale, but rarely does brainstorming lead to actual execution of projects or products. Meaning, get everybody in the room, everybody gets hyped up, and then we go out, and then nothing of what we talked about in the brainstorming session actually happened. Other things are groupthink. So we all started talking about one idea, and that idea just kind of kept going, and we lost track of the conversation, or we lost hold over the conversation. Some of the problem, Jake observed that introverts were a problem. No, he said that one of the problems with meetings is that people that find themselves less confident in meetings, maybe they don't think their ideas are as good, or people who are just generally, I don't really like participating or bringing up my opinion or voice, those opinions weren't heard. And so people who are maybe more articulate or confident or just loud, their voices are heard more in meetings. So there was an unequal distribution of team engagement and actual understanding of what the team really feels as a whole. Waiting time, that being, hey, we came up with a great idea in January, and now we're in September, and we're looking back like, oh man, that was a great brainstorming session, but it's been 9 months and nothing has happened. And then validation. There have been times that great ideas got ideated, they acted on it, a year and a half later, we rolled it out, and it was a total flop. An example that's used in the book Sense and Respond is the Amazon Fire Phone. Great idea, but within a year after the release, it is no more because there was not validation along the way. So maybe some of those problems didn't happen, but still in the end, there's still some problems when it comes to big picture strategy, thinking through as a team, and team meetings. So short story, the design sprint is a rapid process that gives you user feedback in only 4 days. The original book that Jake Knapp wrote called Sprint, How to Solve Big Problems and Test New Ideas in Just 5 Days, was written kind of addressing the things that he had been thinking through when it came to, I saw these problems, how can we fix them? How can we put a constraint on a team to come up with user-validated designs or solutions in 5 days? And so we started doing that at Google, and Google Ventures said, hey, why don't you come on in and start running this with our internal processes? And he did, and it got better and better and better, and after several years, he wrote this book, and the process has continued to change and grow. Some people practice a 5-day design sprint. A company in Berlin that we're affiliated with that I got certified through, they do a 4-day design sprint. But regardless, it is taking all of these problems and trying and putting constraints around them and processes in place. So what are some of the core principles of the design sprint? These are, again, to kind of fix what happens in meetings. One is together alone. Let's get the right people in the room and have them work individually. So sometimes getting the right people in the room happens often, but we don't get everybody's voice. One of the values of a design sprint is for 5 days, we're going to get the right people in the room, but we're going to not rely on the voices of some. We are going to rely on the opinions and thoughts of everyone. And we'll get more into this as we go on. Tangible is better than discussion. What this means is let's create something. Let's not just sit here and ideate. Let's actually move quickly into execution to see if we can get validation. Getting started is better than being right. An example that I like to use is there's a time that it was a Saturday morning, and the girls were kind of making Sarah and I frustrated, and Sarah's like, I just need to get out of the house. So Sarah left the house. We lived there for a couple months. And she came back an hour and a half later with some stuff from Target with curtain rods and curtains for our living room. And I was surprised that she got curtain rods and curtains because we hadn't yet picked out what was the best color like this for our rug, and how does it look with our couch, and how does it look for our artwork. Just kind of want the room to flow together. And Sarah said, if I didn't get curtains and curtain rods today, we wouldn't have had them for another 6 months. Meaning sometimes it's better to have the 80% quality solution 100% done than it is to have the 100% perfect ideal 0% done. So let's actually focus on doing something, and then we'll adjust along the way. And this is something that we really value a lot at Crema, and that's kind of embedded in our culture. Another statement is, or another principle is, don't rely on creativity. The design sprint is not a place for just the artists, for the right brain type folks. It's a type for everyone that thinks through problems. And in that, we're all creative. So leave that idea of, am I creative, am I not, that dichotomy, leave that outside of the design sprint room. And then being fully present. Because this is such precious time, and only 4 days, we ask, and it's in the book specifically, don't bring in your phones, don't bring in your laptops. We're having to say, turn off smart notifications on your watch, simply because we need you fully present. We need everyone fully present right now. And there are breaks, intermittent, every 60 or 80 minutes, where people can get out and check Slacks and an email, et cetera. And if it must happen, someone can take a phone call, but they need to leave the room to do that. But the goal is we are all fully present, fully committed to this problem. So what is the value of a design sprint? We get user feedback in 4 days. That's huge alone. We get the right people in the right room for a concentrated amount of time. We mitigate risk in that we may have an idea that in 6 months we'd realize was not the right idea. We'd find out in 4 days instead of 6 months. And then it saves time and money. For those 6 months, how many hours would employees have worked doing that? And how much would we have been paying salaries and hourly to have those 6 months of work executed? What if instead we just did this and we didn't have to pay for all of that? So it saves time, it saves money, and that's some of the value that it provides. One thing on our website that we're saying is the process normally takes about 5 to 6 weeks. When I say the process, I'm referring to getting these results. Getting these results takes about 5 to 6 weeks, and we do it in 4 days. That's right, it's 400% as efficient and just as effective. So that's kind of a little marketing blip that we're using to think through, why is it valuable? And then the pithy tagline that we're saying is, we're validating your team's ideas fast. And we'll unpack that more. But right now, I want to go into how it's done. Big picture overview, who's involved, the 2 weeks of a design sprint, and then hand off and wrap up. So what we have here is we have a big picture overview. You're not going to see everything right now. But what you need to know is that we sign a contract, we prepare, we have week 1, week 2, we wrap up, and then we're finished. So even though the design sprint is only 8 days, because we do 2 4-day design sprints, it's really about a week and a half of prep work and then 3 or 4 days of wrap up. So it's really like a 4-week commitment. So if you can think through a design sprint a month, prep, execute, wrap up, that's a helpful framework to think through what we're doing and why we're doing it.
And you mean that primarily from Crema's responsibility perspective?
From Crema's responsibility, right. From the client's perspective, we'll get more into what we're asking of them for week 1 and week 2. But this is pre-flight and prep week. This is just like 1 or 2 phone calls with the client. And this is 1 more phone call with the client. So significantly less. Clients were asking realistically 10 days commitment, 2 days or 8 days, and then a day before, a day after, thereabout. So who's involved? From the Crema side, we have up top, we have a facilitator, a wingman or wingwoman, a wing person, a winged person, and a designer. The facilitator is the person that leads the conversation, that guides the conversation, that keeps the team focused, laser focused on one goal, that explains the context of here we are in the engagement, here we are in this process, here's how you're doing, here's what's coming down the pike, etc. The winged person is someone that is concerned about what's next, so the facilitator can be fully present there. So the wingman is someone that's saying, hey, I know that next up we need to have a timer set for 5 minutes. I'm going to set that. Everyone needs sticky notes or these dots. I'm going to cut these out so that So the facilitator can say, okay, next up we've got this, and the wingman can divvy those things up. And the designer, their primary day is day 3, which is designing. Day 1 and 2, they're sitting and absorbing a lot. There are key times where they're going to ask questions, but they are not participating with the design sprint. They're not coming up with solutions, et cetera. And again, we'll get more into this later. Now, one thing that's unique about the wingman and the facilitator is those can be interchanged. So Monday morning, person 1 can be the facilitator and person 2 could be the wingman. And then Tuesday afternoon, that could switch. Or it could be every other month, right? We got 2 facilitators at this company, and they just switch off. Every even month, they are the facilitator. Every odd month, they're the wingman. So it helps that both of them are trained to be facilitators and that know the process. And then from the client side, we need a product owner, maybe a developer, perhaps someone in marketing, someone in sales, business development, really whoever is relevant to the decision-making process. Who are the people that know the most, that have a perspective that no one else has about a specific problem we're trying to solve? Or maybe who is someone that is likely to cause problems if they're not in the room? Someone that when clients goes back to HQ where they work, there's going to be one person that says, well, how did you come up with this idea? And why did you choose this? And how do we know the audience, whatever. Bring them in. It may be a little bit frustrating internally, but you're going to protect yourself and the idea moving forward. Because the design sprint is only as valuable as it has legs to run. So again, there's not a prescriptive, here's who has to be there, but there are some guidelines. They're more like guidelines. Thank you. So another role is from the client is the decider. The decider is a title that is given to an already present client team member. It could be someone in business development. It could be the founder. It could be the product owner. The decider is the person who the buck stops at when it comes to decision-making process in the design sprint. Their role is to observe what their team is saying and ultimately to say, I think that we should move forward with this direction. So the decider's not necessarily taking the popular vote. This is electoral college here, folks. They can, I know that's bad civics, but you see what I'm saying. The decider could say, I know that everyone is leaning towards this, but I'm really convinced that this is the other way, so we're going to go that way. And everyone knows who the decider is at the beginning of the design sprint, and so people know, the team knows, okay, now is not a time for debating that. Now is a time for moving forward, so we can at least find out if this is right. So they are there to drive the team forward towards one common goal. If they have to leave, then they have a conduit. What's the term I'm looking for?
Designated decider.
Yeah, the designated decider.
DD.
The DD, right. I was going for the Steward of Gondor to keep with the Lord of the Rings motif, which is clearly a crowd favorite. So in a case that person 1 needs to leave, they say person 2 will be the decider while I'm gone, and everyone treats that person as the decider. So the 4 days breakdown as follows. Day 1 is mapping, and we'll get into it, but here's the vernacular we're using. Mapping, day 2 is planning, day 3 is making, and day 4 is testing. So before we go any further, I want to pitch a client that Sarah made up. Sarah is my wife. She made up this idea several years ago, and I love the idea. And so we're going to run with this. As I go through, here's what we do in the design sprint. We're going to do it in the context of this company, Urban Baby Care. So there's a company, and none of this is real. But if you take my idea, you will have to pay greatly. There's a company in Times Square, Urban Baby Care. They've developed a trusted way for busy parents to nap their children in bustling New York City. You take your kid, sign up for an open room, and you can nap your child there. It's temperature controlled, it's locked, it's soundproof, and you get a video monitor that has access to 4 cameras around the room. The cameras are motion sensing and sound sensing, and you can even pay for trained babysitters if you sign up ahead of time. In Urban Baby Care, there's a bookstore, a coffee shop, and a deli. You can go out for a day of shopping, and then you can come back and nap your kid there without having to travel back to your hotel, or you could meet up someone in the city. They say, hey, want to meet up for coffee? You can meet there, nap your kid there, because that can be really tricky. So they've signed up for a design sprint because although the video monitor works well, there's a lot of things they're thinking about. But one of the things that they're wondering if they can create an app where you can sign up, see a live stream of your child, change lighting, change sound, etc. And there's all kinds of questions when they come up, when they address this idea. So some of the questions are like, how does making an app cost us more money? And are people willing to pay more? We guarantee that our video monitors are working. What if someone's phone doesn't work and we're held responsible? What if someone's phone dies? Would people now leave and then we're left with their screaming child? Are there any ways that we can integrate MVP technologies without giving them an app? So just text updates, or press X for us to respond with your temperature. Text Y for how much time you have remaining on your nap time. Or maybe a user portal. You can pay X to increase the nap time remaining, etc. So that's a little bit of context for this company that we're going to walk through. Okay?
Great.
Thank you, George. Okay, so as we walk through the first 2 days of the design sprint, we're going to notice that there's 4 primary mountains or peaks that we need to hit. Sprint questions, set target, 3-step concept, and storyboard. Everything else is tertiary. It's secondary. The goal of it is to encourage the team to think in certain ways, to brainstorm in certain ways, to ideate in certain ways, to consider different things, to see group opinions, etc. But each of those things is supporting the top one. Okay, does that make sense what we're talking about? So there may be times that someone says, you know, this exercise wasn't really valuable for me, and the facilitator would say, I understand, and that's okay. Not every single one of these is meant to be like the eureka moment, but it's to guide us towards these 4 things will help us make the best team decision. So in the morning of day 1, we go through a series of exercises that ultimately end up in sprint questions. And what those are there are times where all the people who are around the table say, hey, here's my perspective on how we came to be on urban baby care. Here's why we created urban baby care. Here's why it matters. Here's been the response. Here's some of the problems we see. And all the while, people are jotting down HMW ... How might we ... So people might be asking questions like, how might we guarantee parents don't leave urban baby care facilities? How might we find out if parents trust their phones to monitor their kids? What are some other how might we's someone would write out? This is where treats come into play. Yes?
How might we make sure that the kids are safe in the room?
Yes. 3 Musketeers for you. What's another how might we for 3 Musketeers? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Lex's answer was, how might we make sure the kids are safe in the room? What are some other how might we someone might write out?
How might we ensure the people watching your kids are trustworthy?
Oh, yeah. How can we ensure app privacy, perhaps? Or, yeah, absolutely. How can we make sure that the right people are watching your children?
That's it.
Yeah. What else? How might we qualify for business liability insurance? M&M's all the way in the back. Oh, okay. Okay, great. So at this point, how might we's are written, and we take a look at what's on all the how might we's, and the team simply votes on what we think might be valuable. Now, there's nothing that happens with these votes. It's just a way for the decider to say, here's kind of the pulse of the team. Here's the direction the team is feeling. Here's what our people are feeling. Next up, we move into, it's out of order there, long-term goal. A long-term goal is where we write down in 2 years' time, ... In 2 years' time, what is our goal for urban baby care? So in 2 years' time, we've scaled to Chicago, San Francisco, and Kansas City. In 2 years' time, we want to increase parent confidence by 50%. And we'd like quantifiable goals if possible. In 2 years' time, we want to have 10 locations in New York City. What's another in 2 years' time? Okay, in 2 years' time, we maintain 100% parent presence. A ring pop for Aubrey. Oh, hold on. Okay, what's another long-term goal? In 2 years' time, what? Okay, it's a profitable model. In 2 years' time, we want to make sure that let's get some more specific metrics. How can we specify profitability? Increase revenue by how much percent? 5%. 5%. Some gummies. Three Musketeer for an assist.
No, I'm good.
You don't want the treats?
No, now I'm good.
Okay, now you are good. I'm finally good. I'm finally happy. So at this point, the decider makes their first decider vote, and you can see little stars by decider votes. The decider says, you know what, I've loved all these goals, but the one that I'm going to set on is in 2 years' time, 100% of all urban baby care parents use their phone to monitor their children. We get rid of video monitors. We only have them using their phones. That's the goal. Now we kind of flip it from optimistic, oh, what's possible, to, whoa, can we even do this? So we start to look negatively, or maybe more critically, can we do X, Y, Z in order to meet this 2-year goal? Some examples might be, can we get parents to trust our app? Can we become a tech company and not just a parenting company? Like, first we've just been like facilities and babysitting. Now we're like a tech company. What are some other can we's that might, some negative or more critical questions about, can we have all of our parents, 100% of parents use our app? Can we secure the video streams? Yeah, absolutely. Would you like a ring pop or would you like gummy bears? Gummy bears? Yeah. The ring pop's more of a punishment, if we're honest. It's like, oh, now I have to deal with this thing. Sorry, Aubrey. What's another can we?
Can we assure their phones will be charged?
Yeah. Can we assure their phones will be charged? Ring pop. The best ring pop of all, CK.
Can we turn away people who don't have phones?
Oh, yeah. Can we deal with people that don't have phones? That's a great question. Sorry, Sean. You already contributed, so no more treats for you.
You know what? I don't even want
I didn't. I didn't plan for this. Dear diary, Sean didn't want the treats. Okay, so at this point, everyone votes on the top can we's, and from there we make the sprint questions. And in this case, the decider has said, in 2 years' time, we want 100% of all United Baby Care, urban baby care parents to use their phone to monitor their kids, concerned with these 3 main questions. Will parents trust their phones as much as our video monitor? Can we become more than a safe room with a video monitor? And can we be a tech company? Okay, so that's what they've walked away with. And all of those exercises point to sprint questions. And that becomes our gospel truth for the rest of the engagement. That is one of the key roles of the decider or facilitators to say, let's take a look back at this. Hey, we're having this conversation. This is really great, but we may need to put it in the parking lot because I'm not sure if it answers this question. So we're going to revisit that over and over and over. Next, we draw a map, which maps the user journey from left to right with the original way that they interact with our company being they hear about United Baby Care. Wow, urban baby care. Yeah, change the name, executive decision. And then the goal being, do they use our mobile app? So we write out, okay, well, what are the steps that they took? They heard about us. How'd they hear about us? What did they do? They went to our website. They signed up for a tour. They went to the tour. Then they used the app. And then they signed up for a slot. And then they used the app on their own. The goal, they use our app on their own. And then we set a specific place on this map. We know that there's a lot of different places that we can try and solve this problem. Is it when they walk in through the door, is there a big something that says like, download our app? Or is it right when you log onto our website, it says a new app for the new family, or something like that? Is it as early as right when they log in, or is it as late as when they walk in? So that's where we're trying to figure out, we know we're going to try and solve this problem, but where in the process are we going to do that? Does that make sense? Okay. From there, we move into a series of four stages of note-taking, of doodling, of sharing examples, and then of drawing. And at the end of the day on Monday, every single person has drawn 3 8.5 by 11 pages of, here's my big suggestion for what I would like to put in front of users on Thursday to get their feedback on. And it's as high fidelity as it can be with a Sharpie and paper, with full text, with sticky notes saying this is what this means, or these images slide across, or this is a movie that auto plays, whatever it is. So that's what you walk away with on Monday. On Tuesday, you walk in, and you've got all of those hanging up in the room, and everyone just simply does a heat map where everyone has unlimited votes. It's not really even votes, it's just unlimited opinions, and you just pile on the things that you think are valuable. And that way you can get a look and say, oh, there's a lot of energy around this idea, a lot of people like this idea, and you can just kind of see, here's what has the most energy, the most movement from the team. And again, it's just so that the decider can get a pulse on the team. Yes?
And you might have covered this when you were talking about Crema's involvement versus client, but is there a sweet spot for number of attendees during this? Because I can imagine the more ideas the better, but there might be a limit to that.
Yes.
So is there any commentary on how many people should be in the room?
Yeah, so the question is how many people should be in the room? And I think a sweet spot would be somewhere between 7 to 9, meaning 6 people from the client side, 3 people from Crema side. I think if we get more than that, then there maybe more office politics comes into play, more opinions start to go, et cetera. But again, part of the goal of this is that every person is working individually, so the voices won't be the problem. It might simply just be there's so many good ideas, and now I'm not as content with this idea because I saw these 3 others, right? So if we had like 12 people in the room. Does that answer your question? So at this point, we go through some more decision-making processes. Everyone says, this is my vote and why, and the decider says, okay. I've heard everyone's last pitch. You kind of tried to woo the decider one last time, and the decider says, this is the one we're going to go with. Everyone says, okay. Then we map out what are the 6 stages of making this come to life. We vote, the decider votes, and then we move on to the storyboard. And the storyboard is where we draw 10 frames and we do full text, full explanation. What is the designer going to design tomorrow? Does that make sense? So we've made our way from what's the problem we're trying to solve, where in the user journey are we going to solve it, and then what does that solution look like? And then specifically, what exactly will this look like? So that is the first 2 days, which are really intense. It's nonstop mental processing. You're coming up with idea after idea after idea. Sometimes you're exhausted and you're saying, I don't know why this is worth it. Other times you're like, I didn't expect this epiphany moment to happen now, and it did. Day 3, everyone kind of gets a day off except for the designer. The designer is heads down, nose to the grindstone or to the tablet, and is drawing. It is drawing. Yeah, that was really show relevance there, Justin. It is designing, and then meanwhile, the rest of us are making sure that we are ready to do user testing on Thursday. And then on Thursday, we do user testing, and then we recap with the team. So that is the sprint week, the first sprint week. So I'm going to really quickly show you through some imagery from the Scorebot sprint that we ran. We're not going to go into what they solved or anything like that. Rather, I'm just going to put some pictures to what I just talked about. Here we see all of the how might we's up there. The yellows are how might we's and the blues are broke those how might we's up into different groupings, different concepts. Okay, this is marketing related, this is customer opinion related, this is finance related, whatever. Not whatever, etc. Here's the team considering thoughtfully. Trevor and Courtney are both in tandem there, like the twins from The Shining. So they're looking at the can we's right now, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to vote on. Then we do the in 2 years' time. Everyone just writes down 1 in 2 years' time, and then we break that up, and we put those on the board, and we vote on those. Then we take a look at the map. Again, left to right, how does the user get to the goal? The decider then says, here is where I think it should be, and we circle that area. Okay, does that help make a little bit more concrete what we're doing? Wow. When we said no technology. Kylie. That was probably during a break. That's why that was allowed. Next, we go through a series of things where we take notes. We draw out solutions. And then we come to our final contribution of the day. On Tuesday morning, the team arrives, and all of those things are on the board. And we vote on those, take notes on those. The facilitator clarifies any questions. And then you can see that some ideas in the bottom right had a lot of energy, and this one as well. And then on the left, we had some, on the far left, wow, a lot of people like this idea. And then on the right of the middle one, people didn't like that idea maybe as much. So that's a way, again, for the decider to say, here's the team energy. And Sean is peeking in the background there. And now he's in primary focus.
Whoa.
This is really a presentation on Sean.
Let me just take over.
You know what, Sean? Another Three Musketeers for you. This is where each person in the team gets to woo the decider one last time. Here's what I think that we should do and why. The decider then makes their selection. And then we go. We then go, each person writes down the 6 steps of the user journey. Each person votes simultaneously, and the decider says which one they would like. From there, we cut up the artwork that's already been made, and we put it on the wall. So we don't want to have to redraw artwork that's already been worked on. So we're going to take these things that everyone's worked on, and we're going to put it in the respective places on the storyboard. Then the decider goes through, the designer walks through and says, here's what I understand I'm doing, and here's why, with no participation from the client team. And this is a time for the client to really gain the trust, which hopefully we've already built, but it's a time for the client to say, the designer really knows what we're working on. They have our idea in mind, and I trust that this person is going to design this as we would design it ourselves. And then on Thursday, we are sitting down with user testing. Our setup in the new space is amazing because this is me and Carlos doing user testing, and then over in Carlisle, they're watching the live feed with their video and audio off, except for sometimes the mic came off of mute. And so randomly it's just like the, pay no attention to the people in Carlisle. Then each person is taking notes, and we say, the green is positive feedback, the red is negative feedback or challenging feedback. And so at the end of the day, we walk away, in this case 4, unfortunately, because 1 couldn't make it. We walk away knowing what they think on from left to right, what each person thought, and top to bottom, what each stage of the app people liked or didn't like. Okay? So that is what we're walking away with. When someone says, what are we going to, like, tangible, what are we getting from design sprints? That's what you're getting. You're getting actual user feedback from 5 users at the end of the day. Now let's talk about week 2. So an analogy that AJ and Smart uses is they say that week 1 is like throwing a dart in a dark room at a dartboard, or throwing a dartboard in a dark room. You don't know who you're going to hit. Throwing a dart at a dartboard in a dark room. You know what direction you're throwing. You know what you're trying to hit. But at the end of the week, we still don't know what happens. At the beginning of the week, we don't know what happens. At the end of the week, the light turns on, and we know exactly we know where our darts landed or didn't land. So now we can iterate. We can throw again with the lights on. And so the second week of a design sprint is known as an iteration sprint for that reason. And it's a lot faster. Day 1, we have sprint questions, the 3-step concept, and the decider vote. And then day 2 and 3 is designing and user test prep, and then day 4 is user testing. So week 1, we have 2 days of client engagement. Clients here, boots on the ground in Kansas City. And then week 2, only Monday is their workshopping day. And I'm wondering if we can't make Monday of week 2 or day 1 of week 2 a virtual experience. Since we've already built up and they already know the exercises, could we use real-time board to do these voting solutions? Not sure, but that's not where we are now. We're prioritizing in person all 3 of those days. And then handoff, what do you get? You get all sketch files and PDFs. You get the Envision URL. You get a digitized deck with summary and photos. You get user interview assets. If the users agreed, yes, you can record this interview. You get summarized user feedback, and you get suggested next steps for design and strategy. So those are the things after week 2 that we hand off to you. Now, I do want to clarify a couple things now. The design sprint is not a shortened design and prototype engagement. The point of a design and prototype engagement, as I understand it, is to design and prototype. No, I'm kidding. It is, the point of a design and prototype engagement is to flesh out an idea and a vision and find out, or is to make real the ideas that we've had, to flesh out and understand where the team is, where the team isn't. It's a concept piece to bring back to the team. It's a set journey for what might development look like. This is not that. We are not going to do every screen of your app. We are not going to do, we're not going to fully flesh out Go for it, Alexa. Just rip open that bag. No, no, no. It's okay, Alexa. Your chips are very important. I was being facetious. No, but I wasn't lying. Your chips are important. I'm not demeaning the value of your chips, is what I'm trying to say. Go on. Thank you, Tyler. When Tyler's telling you to carry on and go faster, there's a problem. That's right. So we're not fleshing out every single thing. Instead, we're using designs to validate an idea and to figure out if this hunch that you have is worth pursuing, right? So this is not a designing engagement, although you're going to walk away with designs. Does that distinction make sense? Yes? Yes. Okay. It is not for every single problem, and it's not the golden bullet for every solution. So just because you hear a client say, like, man, I'm confused about this, like, don't be like, design sprint, this is it. Especially with that voice. Instead, it's a specific process for specific problems. And it's not, and this is really important, we are not solving clients' problems for them. Even though this analogy or this comparison breaks down, we are facilitators, we are not consultants. Not that consultants' job are to solve problems, but rather we are not providing the solutions for the team. We are providing a hyper-focused structure, process, and team to help your team solve the best problem yourself. Okay? So we're not going to be bringing in experts from Crema and say, well, what do you think about this idea? What do you think about this? They're the experts. We're providing the context and the framework for them to solve their problems. It's necessary to have a decider. We can't have it if there's not someone to say at some point, I'm sorry, we got to stop conversation, we got to move on. We need a decider. And it's almost essential to have clients in Kansas City. So this is, or we fly to clients. But it is by nature a personal experience. So now that we've gone over how, why? Why do we do this? What's the value of it? User-validated designs in 4 days. We validate ideas, and we get yeses, nos, and maybes. One of my favorite things about the design sprint is that we don't, like, every answer is a good answer. Is that if we get a yes from users, that's wonderful because we know that we're headed on the right track. But if we get a no, that's just as valuable because we just saved so much time and energy from wasting our time. And if it's a maybe, that's also great because that means that if we were to have gone to market with this, it would have been unclear. So there's no wrong answer when it comes to user feedback, and that's what's really great about this. It saves time and money. It gives the decider what they want for better or worse. One of the values of this could be if you've got a bull-headed decider of a product owner that's saying this is the best idea and this is the best idea because it's my idea and it's the best idea, and they rush through everything and they say no one else's opinions matter. We find out if that person was right or not, and it's better for them to find out sooner that they're wrong or right than make the team suffer. And it's a great way for the team who might not agree with them to be like, oh, they were right all along. Or it might be great for the team to be like, we told you, but now you heard it from users, not from us. It gives voices to introverts, quieter folks, or people who prefer not to contribute. Now I want to talk about what you can do. Listen to your clients. Listen to phrases like this. We don't know if people will like this. Or if you hear a client say something like, we've gone back and forth for several months about this. Or we don't want to waste our time on something that isn't right. Or our idea is unlike anything else, and we think our clients are going to love it. When we hear things like that, we start to think, what if I could give you a part of this answer in 4 days? And it's, again, I hate to use that phrase, give you the answer. What if we could help you find that answer in 4 days? That becomes a really valuable thing for clients. And again, there's two values there. There's simultaneously it is valuable because you can get the answer, but there's also it's valuable because you can get it in 4 days. So expediency is a real value of the design sprint. In fact, it's essential to the design sprint. You can also use phrases to sell it, like we've got something in our toolkit that may help in this situation. You've liked our strategy and alignment session. You liked how interactive it was. You liked the group dynamic. You liked the collaboration, et cetera. What if we did something like that, but even more intensive? Or this is something that thousands of companies in all kinds of industries are doing. If someone says, like, I don't know about what this is, we're not like Airbnb or Slack. You can say, no, this isn't just like for trendy young tech companies. This is for healthcare industries. This is for people who've used it in in civic or in civic responsibilities in local governments. They've used it in education. All kinds of industries have benefited from design sprints, and all kinds of ages. There are some design sprint groups that I'm a part of that people post like, we use it in my daughter's homeschooling class to do this, this, or this. And so there's a lot of ways that it's really helping kids express themselves to try and solve problems together as a team, especially when there is an exacerbation of the louds and the quiets in kids. Or you can sell it by saying, would it be valuable to spend one intensive week if it meant getting your team aligned and figuring out if this idea was the right direction? That's a great question. Now, it's a little bit leading. It's a little bit more leading than these other ones. But regardless, those are some things that you can do for next steps. So with that being said, we've got time for Q&A. Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that there are also like 1 and 2 and 3-day design sprints. Why did we land on 4, and how are people able to do it in less than 4?
Right. So there are several companies around the world that you'll find that do 1-day design sprints to 3 or 4-day design sprints. Why are we doing 4, and how do they decide 1, 2, or 3? And I would simply say that the answer is because they have tried it and it's fitting their audience needs. If we do this for a year and it works out really, really well, and we find out that there's key aspects of this that work really well, then a client might say, hey, we want to do this, but we can't do this like the traditional 8-day thing. Could we do this for 2 days? And at that point, it's not a design sprint, but we may call it that for just convenience. We don't want to be semantical and be like, well, it's actually, because it's this, it's not this. Instead, I think we might say like, yeah, we can do this. It doesn't equal this, but it's the best of this. And just use a lot of pronouns so that this is and this has got confusing. Let me start over. By the books is 5. Design Sprint 2.0, AJ and Smart said, what if we did it in 4? And that's what I've been trained in, and that's where a lot of companies now are going, so that's why we're doing that. If there's ways to do it shorter, we may utilize aspects of it, but I don't think that would be our wheelhouse. It's a highly structured process, and we'd like to stick with that structure for now. Is that fair, George?
Yes.
Okay. Yes?
Who would typically be the facilitator? Is that a Crema? Is the Crema?
That's a great question. Yeah, so who is traditionally the facilitator? The facilitator, the wingman, and the designer are all Crema employees. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I'm going to extrapolate on your question. The question, who is a part of a design sprint team? Facilitator and wingman are both positions that are not necessarily, you don't have to be a product manager or a product strategist to have those roles. If you are someone that you feel confident facilitating, if you feel confident in front of people, if you find yourselves guiding conversations, if you have a presence that makes people feel warm and welcoming, et cetera, if you feel articulate, then it's for anyone that can fill those roles. So it's not like this is what a facilitator is, here's your skill set. Rather, it's what are your soft skills and what are your abilities to fulfill those roles. But they are Crema employees. Why Crema? Why not others? Why not themselves? For why Crema, I would say that because we have an industry knowledge and we've been doing things like this for a long period of time. Even though we don't have, and this is the internal way we'll talk about it, even though we haven't been running design sprints, we have a lot of experience in strategy and alignment sessions. We have a lot of experience in facilitation and guiding teams through long decision-making processes. And we have a lot of different things in our toolkit of how can we lead this meeting? How can we try this? How can we get everyone's voice heard, et cetera? So we have a lot of the ingredients, and we are the best to take those ingredients and then put it in the recipe to make a great meal, if you will. Also, our designers are amazing. Our designers speak for themselves. In this case, I'm speaking for them. But, but you see what I'm saying. Why not go somewhere else? Right now, we cost less than others. And that I think that the skills that we offer and the uniqueness that we offer, I think that puts us above other companies. Because I think that companies that are starting it are design firms, but they don't have the strategy and the management experience that Crema has. And so I think we have a higher EQ and a better understanding of how to interact with teams than a traditional design shop. One thing that didn't get brought up that I'd like to bring up now is excuse me, where does a design sprint fall in a traditional engagement cycle? There are a couple ideals. I'm going to give 3 of them. One is you do a design sprint with Crema, and then you're done. Sign up, get the validation, and leave. And that's the end of the engagement. Another is we do a design engagement, or I'm sorry, we do a design sprint, and they say, this was really great. Now we want to, knowing this, we want you guys to design an app and then develop an app. Or we know this, we got great designs, I think we have enough to move right into development, let's do that. So there's the standalone, there's the ramp on to Crema engagement, and then there's the pit stop, I'll call it, I suppose, which is middle of engagement. We're going through something, it's a year-long engagement, and it's clear the client has an appetite for speed, and it's clear they're frustrated with problem-solving methods currently, and they say, we really need to get this thing out by October. Here it is in March. I don't think we're going to hit it. We don't have time to test with users. And then someone says, what if we did this? They said, can we do this like May 1st? And Crema says, yeah. And they go, OK, let's do that. And so it's in the middle of the engagement. So standalone, ramp up, or pit stop. So there's not like a necessarily, this is where it is in Crema. But those are different possibilities. Alexa?
You mentioned user testing, and I meant to ask, whose responsibility is it to recruit users?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I find it traditionally to be hard to
Yes.
find people and get them scheduled.
Yeah, so the question is, what do we do with users? How do we get the user testing? How do we, who gets them? When do they get them? How do they get them, et cetera? Traditionally, that's the facilitator and the winged one. They are, as soon as the contract is signed, they're meeting with the client to say, hey, who are your users? Who are the people that you would like feedback from? Do you have any lists that we can reach out to? Do we have this, this, this? So that we're building a database. So there's a couple ways of doing that. We can reach out to them via email, or if they say, hey, here's our 10 people. If we can get them, that's great. Now that's a B2B model. I'm sorry, B2C. That's ideal. Like, hey, we've got this email list of like 10,000 people. Just email them. What's hard is what if we're working with CISOs and they say like, well, there's only like 4 of us in the United States that really solve this problem. Then we have to rethink it, and then we may only get 2 people's feedback. So it kind of depends based on the engagement. But again, it's the job of the 2 facilitators. And then really the rubber hits the road during the week. That's something they may be doing during their off time, during the breaks, or during lunch. That's not ideal. We'd love to have it set up the week before. Worst comes to worst, you put it on Facebook. You make some Facebook ads. I got recruited to a design sprint testing in Germany via Facebook ad. It was perfect. And I got a little Amazon gift card for it. So hooray. Or as they would say, ja. So, maybe not? Okay. So, does that answer your question? Omitting the last, I'm German, so I'm allowed to, thank you, okay. Thank you all for joining, and be looking for next steps whenever there are next steps. Thanks, guys. Thank you.